Hey everyone, Justin and Jesse Klein here with the Klein Real Estate team. And today we're going to cover probably the question we get asked most frequently. What are the fees I'm going to pay as I purchase a home, and what service providers do we need?
The big one, obviously, is realtors. How much do you pay realtors? And when you're buying a home, you actually don't pay anything out of pocket to a realtor. What happens is the fee gets baked into the listing side of the home. So the seller actually pays the fee of both the listing agent and the agent that's representing the buyer, the buyer's agent. Now, there's no standard, there's no fixed rate that all realtors charge, but on average, what you would see in Vancouver is a realtor charging around 3% of the purchase price. Typically, it'll be structured something like 7% on the first 100,000 and then 2.5% or 3% on the balance of the purchase price. Would be pretty common in Vancouver. About half of that goes to the buyer's agent, about half goes to the listing agent, and both out of the seller's pocket. Now, you might say, oh my gosh, 3% of $1 million home is $30,000. What's interesting is in the USA, a lot of agents charge 6%. Even in San Francisco and LA and New York, it's all like some of these agents, a lot of these agents are making like double what a lot of Vancouver agents are making. Even Toronto and the east coast of Canada is more like a lot of people are charging 5% versus like 3% here. So Vancouver, actually, a lot of the agents here charge some of the lowest fees in the world. United Kingdom is like 1 or 1.5%, but they only have listing agents. As a buyer's agent, you're on your own. So there is a downside there, but it is cheaper. Financing fees. So usually you don't have to pay any kind of fee to a lender or a mortgage broker for arranging a financing, which is with an A lender, a big bank, or a credit union, that kind of thing. The mortgage broker usually gets paid around 1% of the mortgage amount from the lender. Some mortgage brokers, discount mortgage brokers, do kick some of these fees back, just like realtors. Just be aware that you expect discounted service then, and not as attentive, and maybe involved in the process and that kind of thing, right? And then with a bank, direct to bank, I mean, you know what? You're not paying typically the mortgage specialist there is not going to be getting a commission, but the rates usually don't seem to end up being any lower than if you use a broker. Oftentimes a broker can actually get you a lower rate. The other big one is CMHC insurance fee with financing, and that can be up to 4% of the loan amount. So if you're taking out a $500,000 mortgage, it could be $20,000, and that gets added to your mortgage balance. And you have to repay that if you sell the property and don't buy a new one. So that can be a really, really big fee. If you're getting a $900,000 mortgage, that could be almost a $40,000 fee. So that's huge. And that CMHC fee is only if you're putting less than 20% down on the property. And as you get closer to 20%, then this fee gets smaller, versus at 5%, then it's like the full 4% fee.
Another service that you're often going to want to get, something that is optional, an inspector. You're going to want an inspector to catch any major issues with the property, especially if you're buying something old, a 70s, 80s, 90s house. There's a lot of things that go into it. Inspector is going to help you feel more confident going into your home, and that's going to run you about $550 to $750 depending on the inspector. But we would highly advise using an inspector, especially on a detached home.
And if you're doing an older detached home, it's a great idea to even pay a couple $100 and get some specialized trades in there. Yeah. Inspectors are great to give you a general overview of the home, but if you really want to know how many years are left on the roof, if you want to know the plumbing, quotes for replacing anything that needs to be replaced, same with like running a line through the sewer, making sure that that's still not blocked, because that can be very expensive to dig that up. You could easily spend another like $500 to $1,000 paying a couple $100 per trade to get them in, inspecting the home, the details of it before purchasing it, on top of your typical home inspector.
And then once you do purchase that home, you're going to need to get a lawyer or a notary to handle the closing and title registration. It varies, but roughly around $1,600 on average. There's not really a way around that one. For moving into the home, of course, you have your movers. If you need storage, utility providers, these can be a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. If you don't hire movers, you're going to have to get pizza and beer for your poor friends who are helping you move. And then also, if you're moving into a strata management, a condo building, for the most part, there will be a fee to rent the elevator or a move-in fee. this is $200 to $400 roughly.
The other big one is property transfer tax. And this is a big fee, 1% on the first $200,000 and then 2% after on the remaining amount up to $2 million, unless you're buying a home for under $500,000, in which case it gets waived and you're a first-time home buyer for that. But there's not many of those available anymore. So you're pretty much stuck with this one. And then once you go over 2 million, it bumps up to 3% from 2 to 3 million. And then over 3 million, it goes all the way to 5% on any amount after that. So imagine every extra $100K you're paying for that $3 million plus home is an extra $5,000 to the government. Ouch. GST is the other big tax you got to watch out for. And this is a super complicated tax matter. You got to be really careful with this one. I wouldn't take anybody's word for it. No realtor, nothing. If they say, oh, GST is not payable, go talk to an accountant because it's 5% of the purchase price, which is huge. And it can be applicable. Everybody thinks, oh, it's only if it's a new home. Okay, well, it's also applicable if somebody bought a new home, paid GST already, and then never occupied it or never rented it out. GST is payable again by the buyer, another 5%. I've seen people get burned by that. They didn't realize it. And they get a letter in the mail. CRA's like, hey, pay us 70 grand. Brutal. Also, not only that, but if a home's been substantially renovated, and the CRA has their own definitions for this, and they're not even that clear. If a home's been substantially renovated, you might have to pay GST on it. So again, you could get a $70,000 surprise bill in the mail. And same with things like commercial use, if it was short-term rented, and those kind of things. So really what we do for our buyers is we write in all of our contracts, any purchase price is to include any applicable GST. And if it is paid, and then it'll be remitted by the seller. So basically, if GST is applicable, because it is based on what the seller did with the property, not what the buyer did with the property, like the seller is the one that maybe short-term rented it and we don't know about that. If it's payable, it's included in the purchase price and the seller will remit that.
So if you want more specific calculations, feel free to reach out. We can, play with the numbers. We have a Rolodex of great people to refer out as well. So feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help and talk. And don't forget to like and subscribe.